Hello Neverwinter. This is a build video, I promise. If you want to just see the build, skip ahead to 12:25. That's where the actual build kicks in. I have just included this little snippet from our original completion run, since this build is basically the build. Well, it is the build that I used for this run. Knowledge has sort of increased slightly since this point, but the build stays the same. So, a couple of key things to note: you'll see where the importance of the movement speed comes in, as if you watch this through.
Balls.
Basically, now this boss isn't quite this bad now, because this was before they did the tweaks. This was in the very first week, when she was still just throwing out dozens of balls at a time and like a tank buster every 5 seconds. But yeah, I mean, you can see the importance of the movement speed. The movement speed is required to get out of the range of the balls, and also sort of maintain a close enough range to the healer so that you're not stressing your healer out. Anyway, enjoy. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe.
Balls.
Siphon! Death reigns from above.
Bulls. Bulls.
Fuck.
Bulls.
Oh, fuck.
Bulls. Bulls. Fuck you, green. Fuck you.
Hello, Neverwinter. The Soul Harvest trial has been out for a couple of weeks now. As some of you may be aware if you've been watching the channel, Dreadnoks was both the first and the second group to complete the Master Trial on the PlayStation platform. I'm not sure about the wider platforms, haven't been paying that much attention to it. I'm going to put out the build that I used during our second group complete. It's not what the other tanks who are completing are doing, so you know, take it with a pinch of salt. As with all of my stuff, it works for me, it might not work for you. And apologies for the constant despawning of the Black Death Scorpion. That is an ongoing bug in the training room that is highly irritating, so as soon as we get through this little section I think I will desummon it. So the main sort of issue, or the most difficult boss to face in the Soul Harvest trial, is the green boss. Although it's got slightly easier now due to the tweaks that they've made, but it's still a bit of a pain. Movement speed is, like, once again a very important stat in this dungeon for positioning and getting out of damage areas, and obviously stamina regen, etc, etc. So this is a recreation of the build that I used originally for the original complete, and then I'll show you what I'm currently using afterwards. Okay, so we're unbuffed here. As you can see, the stats aren't exactly wildly capped, or in particularly well capped. Obviously we've got quite a few different stats that come in once we get healed and stuff like that. So yeah, basically what I'm saying is we're not going wild on the stat capping. Obviously the Wrath mode will kick in and that'll give us some more defense. This is actually a dungeon where having over 90% defense is useful and viable, due to the damage resistance debuff that gets put on you at various points. And I'm desummoning that companion because it is doing my nut in. Oh, thank God.
Have you been practicing?
Right.
Quite good.
So ability point wise, we're doing strength and con again. This is a once again, a very HP heavy dungeon. So the more you have, the better you'll do. obviously maintaining stats is advisable as well. But as with all tanking situations, having fully capped stats is not necessary. The high stam regen and high movement speed are like essential in here. This doesn't look very high at the minute, but it does go above, like up to and above 100 when we're actually in the trial itself. Partly due to these weapons, the trial weapons being from the trial is in Thay, so the movement speed kicks in with these weapons. Buff-wise, we got the Capri, we got the honeyed bread for the defense, crafted potion of deflect, elixir of steadfast devotion. That just gives us roughly balanced ratings for our combat balance. We are using the new enchantment for the tank. This beyond just a 15% HP buff, this outgoing damage reduction is actually significantly more consistent than the flash freeze. So this is definitely the best tank enchantment at the minute. It does unfortunately only come out of the lockbox, or you can buy it on the auction house, but I think it's quite expensive at the minute and probably going to remain so for a while. Okay, gear wise, I went for the incoming healing helmet. Again, this was on the first complete, so I'm still figuring stuff out. This incoming healing affects the size of the shields that you receive. So if you happen to be lucky enough to have a shielder and you end up on green, it just means that you get an additional 12% worth of shields basically. And then obviously it also applies to like your potions of rejuvenation. So it just gives you a little bit of additional oomph from your healer. I've switched on to the ritualist neck and waist set. Which is just a little additional benefit, 2.5% damage reduction, and then a bit more damage for the aggro. We're using the Manticore Mains Bite. Aggro is going to be a bit. There's the potential for it to be dicey in here because obviously there's a lot of mechanics going on, especially on green, where you can't sit on the boss like you might want to usually do just to sort of maintain the aggro. Incidentally, it's why KV is not particularly useful for threat generation in here either. You don't want to put your DPS in a position where they have to use the KV for the threat. Basically, it's just not safe. So we're having to fall back into the dark arts of GF tanking to maintain the aggro now. Celestial chest piece. Probably the best tank chest piece in the game currently. Besides, obviously, this one, but the item level's so low on this one, and although there's 7.5 stats, 15% stats for these two things, and the additional stamina regen are nice, they don't quite match up to the reduction in the incoming damage and the additional health point boost. And obviously that's from MSH, Celestial drop. It's a tough one to get, to be perfectly honest, unless you get very lucky, but at least MSH itself isn't exactly difficult for a tank to do, as long as you know your runes. I just put these on for additional defense. You know, there's technically you could put these on, but the stats are less useful really. And that one drops from Master Dread Sanctum. I think you can get it just from doing like a first boss farm. I'm using the watches, or I was using the watches guys. Actually, no, tell a lie. In the original build, I was using the Chlorocovetous Flame. And that was for the defensive stats. Obviously, a lot of tanks are running the threat ring. I've been doing alright without it. So, you know, if you're highly wedded to the concept of the threat ring, then carry on. But my strategies have been working relatively well without running it. It does help to have at least one running it, or if you've got like a barb tank, they're very good for AoE threat. And I actually think that the Stalwart Needle Ring of Celerity is probably the better tank ring, to be honest. Since it's got that additional stamina regen. And we've got some pretty solid sources of crit avoidance nowadays. But hey, I did not use either of the threat rings. I used this Chlorocovetous Flame, and that just helped give an extra little bit of threat generation. Second part to the Ritualist set. Okay, now this was where I had to do a bit of thinking. So, for survivability, just pure survivability, the Void Touch is still the best weapons. The reason why I switched to these is because of the movement speed and the pull-in sandstorm effect that you get. So when you get to the bridge, having your daily up with that pull-in effect can just pull in an entire group of mobs and just clear the area for the DPS, and then group the mobs together so they can nuke them down. Obviously it's not like you're using multiple dailies on the bridge, but you can just give the DPS some breathing room on that initial set, and then switch over to some like line breaker to make sure that you're picking up the aggro, or the initial aggro, before it gets too much for the DPS to handle, before the panic sets in, basically. And like I say, the additional movement speed is incredibly welcome. Two artifacts the tanks seem to be running mostly in here is either the Scepter or the Volcano, although also Dragonbone Blades. So that's just going to be whatever your group decides they want you on. I was keeping up with the Mark of the Covenant. I'm not sure how good it was actually doing, to be honest. But hey, I mean, completed, so it can't have been doing too bad. Obviously, we've got some newer tank stuff dropping from the dungeon itself, so I have upgraded to that since, but still a handy one, this. And as I say, yeah, since there's a damage resistance debuff that gets placed on, so it is now actually worth having higher defense than 90%, just to take the edge off when that happens. These are just the highest available IM level defense spec artifacts with stamina regen, and of course the war boots of the Cataclysm. Now, technically, the superior dragon boots are actually stronger than these are, because they give you the 20% increase in maximum hit points. Although you do have to sacrifice a bit of item level. It's just, don't feel like you need these boots to do this dungeon. If you have the previous version of them, they will work as well. And then if you're really old school, you might have the previous version of that version. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend running these ones, especially if you've got the other ones. They didn't used to give us very many ratings, you see.
Did you stretch before we started?
Yeah, so I don't think, once again, that the bosses have permanent CA like they usually do, so still figuring it out, but I think awareness is once again slightly less important than it has been in the past.
I've never seen a strategy like that work before.
Enchantment wise, it's just whatever you need to balance out your stats, as always. Power or combat advantage in offense, since we're not running a debuff set which is like triggering off crit strikes or anything. We're just going for raw power.
Did you stretch before we started?
And then stat overload and HP overload. And of course the movement speed, which is the most powerful stat in the game, as I keep saying. Incidentally, I have switched from this stats to the damage resistance overload recently. I seem to be getting good results with that with the new build. Okay, this one's going to be a little bit controversial. So for the very initial and original complete, you can see I was not running KV. I was actually using Knight's Challenge, Enforced Threat, Anvil of Doom, with the top of the threat modifier put on, and Brazen Slash, Threatening Rush, and then just basically doing a Threatening Rush cancel to generate threat at the initial point, and just being on the ball, basically ready to go in and sweep up in case the aggro switched with either the Anvil or the Enforced Threat. Now I use Earthshaker as a way to lay down some nice big damage, and then the Manticore kicks in, and then if you retaliate on top as well, you just get a massive boost of threat, especially combined with the staying power. Now, it has been changed since then. I'll give a little glimpse at the new build after I've finished this. If you swap out Threatening Rush for Tide of Iron, and then go through the Earthshaker, Manticore, Retaliate sequence, you'll generate so much threat you won't even know what to do with it. Really powerful combination. I think there's some sort of multiplier effect going on between the Enforced Threat staying power and the Tide of Iron. But it's pretty significant. But again, that wasn't what I did on the first complete. So Knight's Challenge was just basically being popped to restore. The main issue was the green, so the green will sometimes be like 4 tank busters in a row whilst you've got balls up, and it just all gets very messy. So this just gives you that extra little kick of stamina to survive, basically. And then it obviously reflects some of the damage as well. So that's just a handy extra bit of threat generation. Now, when I had to move away, when I stood like in a group of balls, I would often just pop Second Wind as like a precautionary measure. And then obviously that also triggers the Manticore, so that reflects back onto the boss, and then it just helps that way, but it also obviously increases your hit points. And just gives you an extra bit of survivability. There's nothing worse than chasing that green boss around when she's in a field of balls and she's targeting the DPS. Absolute mess. And then obviously we're running Brazen Slash to get our stamina back. Interestingly enough about Brazen Slash, you don't actually need to hit anything for it to trigger. So you can just sort of be stood back away from the boss and then just at will and it'll pick it up. That's going to take far too long for me to show accurately. Okay. Well. Yeah, so that's what I used originally. That was the power set I used, and that was why I used it. And then I had a different power set for the bridge phase, which was Linebreaker, Knight's Valor, Enforce Threat. And that was just to sort of give it more AoE threat generation situation.
Was that your best attempt? Let's try it again.
Okay, so Master Boons are the same as they've always been. All of the potion buffs, and then that just gives your Potion of Rejuvenation the ability to keep you up, basically. Whatever you want here. We've got Revive Sickness on, of course, because we finally got we finally got something that's should we say difficult enough that I feel like Revive Sickness is required. So obviously once we get to the point where it's easier or more predictable, like the deaths are a minimum amount, then it would be switching back onto the movement speed. So we actually run the Scorpions on the tank, both tanks.
I've never seen a strategy like
But
that.
since I'm in the training room and it's irritating as hell, I have taken that off. But it will be Scorpion, if you're in one of our groups at least. I changed the companion gear from previously to Deflection, Deflect Severity.
Was that your best attempt?
And that's because I think there is some... I think Deflect is performing quite well in this dungeon. There's some weird things going on regarding Deflect. So to my knowledge, Deflect doesn't actually work when you've got your shield up. However, these do kick in when you've got your shield up, which is making me rethink whether or not Deflect is kicking in when you've got your shield up. Especially when we look at how variable these hits are. Because I would expect more consistency. See that 14 there, that 15. Some of this would be explained just by obviously stats coming in, stats coming out, but the sheer range of values there makes me think that maybe the deflect is kicking in. But that's something I'm still investigating, so we'll see. Yeah, there's nothing particularly special in here. Got our Wrath's Patience, that gives us like around 11%, I think. Defense. Obviously, when you get the new crit avoid pants I just showed you there, you can swap out this for something else. I put Regis in there, but some people are stacking additional defense. And we are continuing to use the Raptor because there are points where the entire team comes together, so not so lucky enough to be able to get rid of it yet, guys. The manpower setup's the same as it's always been. Oh, apart from one thing though. They brought in this new Master's Cruelty thing, which has removed my ability to run Champion's Return with a preferred slot, so that's pretty annoying. Okay, yeah, so that is the build that I used on that first complete.
I've never seen a strategy like that work before.
This is the build I am using now. I won't go fully into details, because obviously you'll need to complete the dungeon before you can actually access any of this stuff, or a lot of this stuff. So switch to the Helm of the Unyielding Bastion. I don't actually know if this is any better than the incoming healing one, but it is higher item level. Basically, it's higher item level, and it's some extra crit avoid that I want. So there is that. Gauntlets to the Unyielding Bastion. These are, I mean, not even for the awareness, just for that 10% damage reflection is incredibly powerful. Usually when we have this sort of reflect your HP damage, it caps out at like 50k or something. A full 10% reflection of damage, just, you know, incidentally, is very powerful. And I switched over to the Watcher's Gaze, just because I was kind of hopelessly overcapped on a few things. And this thing actually triggers a lot more often, and it fills your AP gauge incredibly fast this ring. Obviously Manticore ring still, everything else the same. So for some reason these new ones don't have a set bonus effect. I don't know if that's something that they just forgot or didn't bother with this one, but so yeah, this is like an additional little bit of defense, but then we also get the increased magnitude. So then when we're going in, we're putting our Earthshaker down, we're just getting extra threat, right, basically. And then these are the pants I'm talking about, which seem to trigger when you've got your shield up, which to my understanding of how things work should not have been the case, but who knows, maybe I've been wrong all these years. You see, there we go, 9%. And for the stat purists out there, I would also prefer completely static stats, but it's just not the game we're living in at the minute, guys. I'm sorry. And as you can see, like, highly variable stamina loss once again. And due to my suspicions about deflect, I've switched in the Regis, as I said, and then I'll just keep testing and seeing what's going on with that. Obviously we now have a Tide of Iron slotted in here as well, so if you're having any trouble with threat, I would recommend trying that. Oh, incidentally, I also swapped over 2 Knight's Valor from Knight's Challenge. That's mostly to aid DPS survivability, like if you happen to have a melee on green or something. The Knight's Valor is nearly as effective as the Knight's Challenge for recovering your stamina. Obviously due to its interaction with the steel recovery. Okay, that's it. That's what I did. That's how I built. I might pull out some of the footage from the run as well and splice it into this video somewhere. Yeah, okay. Thank you for watching. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments. If you liked the video, please leave a like. If you like a lot of videos and you haven't already subscribed, then please subscribe. I'll put out some how to tank videos soon. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.